The man who had everything Nathan Cross stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office, watching the Chicago skyline glitter like scattered diamonds against the night. At 48, he'd built Crosstech Industries into a technology powerhouse worth billions. His name appeared on Forbes lists and business magazines. Politicians sought his endorsement. Investors hung on his every word. Yet tonight, surrounded by luxury and power, he felt strangely hollow. His assistant knocked softly before entering. "Mr. Krause, the final preparations for tomorrow's gala are complete." The mayor confirmed his attendance, and we're expecting over 500 guests. Nathan nodded without turning. "Thank you, Jennifer. That will be all." Alone again. His reflection stared back from the darkened glass. Success had given him everything except peace. Memories he'd buried for over 2 decades kept surfacing lately, unbidden and unwelcome. A woman's laugh. The warmth of her hand in his, promises whispered in moonlight. All of it crushed under the weight of a single document that changed everything. 20-2. Years earlier, the memory pulled him backward through time. Grace Monroe had been different from every woman who'd crossed his path. She worked as a nurse at Chicago General. Her shifts brutal, but her spirit unbreakable. They'd met when he visited a friend recovering from surgery. Her gentle competence with patients, the way she listened with her whole heart, captivated him instantly. Their courtship bloomed quickly. Grace didn't care about his growing wealth or social connections. She loved him for the man beneath the ambition. They spent weekends exploring hidden coffee shops, walking along Lake Michigan, dreaming about futures that felt wonderfully simple. When she told him she was pregnant 6 months into their relationship, his joy surprised even himself. "We're going to be parents," he'd whispered, holding her close in his apartment. "I'll build something amazing for our family." Grace had smiled, her eyes shining with happiness and trust. "We already have something amazing, Nathan. Everything else is just extra." But his mother saw things differently. The poison of doubt. Diane Cross had built her own empire in Chicago's social circles. A widow who'd transformed her late husband's modest investments into significant wealth. She wielded influence like a weapon. From the moment Nathan introduced Grace, Diane's disapproval hung between them like frost. "She's after your money," Diane warned repeatedly. "Can't you see? A nurse conveniently getting pregnant by a rising tech entrepreneur. It's the oldest trap in the world." Nathan defended Grace fiercely at first. But his mother was relentless, planting seeds of doubt with surgical precision. She questioned Grace's background, her motives, her sudden pregnancy. Each conversation chipped away at Nathan's certainty. Then came the document that destroyed everything. Diane arrived at his office one afternoon, her expression grave. "I had to be sure," she said, sliding a manila envelope across his desk. "Before you legally tied yourself to her, I needed proof." Inside was a paternity test report from Dr. Hamilton Reed, a respected geneticist. The results were clear. Nathan Cross was not the biological father of Grace Monroe's unborn child. The probability of paternity, 0%. Nathan's world tilted. His hands trembled as he read the clinical language that shattered his future. Grace, the woman he'd trusted completely, had betrayed him in the cruelest way possible. "I'm sorry, darling," Diane said softly, placing a hand on his shoulder. "But you needed to know before it was too late." The night everything ended, Nathan confronted Grace that evening in the small apartment they'd begun sharing. She was humming softly, folding tiny baby clothes they'd purchased together the week before. The sight of her peaceful contentment enraged him. "Whose child is it, Grace?" His voice cut through the quiet like broken glass. She looked up, confusion clouding her features. "What are you talking about?" He threw the test results onto the coffee table. "Don't lie to me anymore." "I have proof." Grace picked up the papers with shaking hands. As she read, the color drained from her face. "This is insane. I've never even heard of this doctor." "Nathan, I haven't been with anyone else. You know that." "I thought I knew a lot of things," he said coldly. "Turns out I was wrong." "Please," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Something's wrong with this test. We can do another one. We can go together and prove this is a lie." But Nathan's pride had already built walls around his heart. The humiliation of being fooled, the shame of his mother being right. The anger at his own blindness combined into something toxic. "I want you out of here by tomorrow. My lawyers will send divorce papers. We're not even married," Grace said, her voice breaking. "Then this'll be simpler," he replied, turning away. "Goodbye, Grace." He walked out of the apartment in her life, never looking back to see her collapse onto the floor, sobbing into the baby clothes that would never grace their shared home. Grace is silent. Exodus Grace left Chicago 3 days later. She'd tried calling Nathan, sent messages, even went to his office only to be turned away by security. His mother had been thorough, ensuring every bridge was burned. With her savings nearly gone and no family to turn to, Grace bought a bus ticket to Portland. The city was far enough to start over, big enough to disappear. She arrived with 2 suitcases, a broken heart, and 3 lives growing inside her. The first months were brutal. She found work at a small clinic, hiding her pregnancy as long as possible. Her coworkers were kind but distant. Nobody asked about the father or why a young woman was facing motherhood alone. Portland had a way of letting people keep their secrets at night. Lying in her cramped studio apartment, Grace would rest her hands on her swelling belly and whisper stories to her unborn children. "Your father doesn't know you're 3 instead of 1, she'd say softly. "He doesn't know how you kick in different rhythms. He doesn't know you at all. But I promise you'll never feel unloved." When her water broke 6 weeks early, Grace was alone in the apartment. A neighbor heard her cries and called an ambulance. At Portland Medical Center, she labored through the night, terrified and exhausted. But when the doctor announced triplets, 2 boys and a girl, something shifted inside her. She held each tiny baby, counting fingers and toes, memorizing their perfect faces. Owen came first, with a full head of dark hair and Nathan's strong jawline. Riley followed, quieter and thoughtful, even in those first moments. Harper arrived last, small but fierce, her grip surprisingly strong when she wrapped tiny fingers around Grace's thumb. "You're mine," Grace whispered to them. "Every part of you is mine, and I'll make sure you never doubt it." Building from ruins, the years that followed tested Grace in ways she'd never imagined. Raising triplets alone meant constant exhaustion, financial struggle, and sacrifices that carved deep into her soul. She worked double shifts when she could, relying on kind neighbors and affordable daycare to bridge the gaps. But Grace refused to let bitterness poison her children's lives. She never spoke ill of their father, saying only that sometimes adults make mistakes and families take different shapes. The triplets grew up knowing they were wanted, loved, valued. Owen developed Nathan's analytical mind, excelling in mathematics and computer science. Riley inherited Grace's empathy, always the peacemaker among his siblings. Harper showed artistic brilliance, seeing beauty and patterns where others saw chaos. By the time they reached high school, Grace had built something remarkable. Her reputation as a dedicated nurse led to administrative opportunities. She saved aggressively, invested wisely, and eventually purchased a small medical supply company. Monroe Medical Solutions grew steadily, serving clinics throughout the Pacific Northwest. The triplets worked alongside their mother, learning business from the ground up. They saw her integrity, her tireless work ethic, her refusal to compromise her values for profit. These lessons shaped them more than any formal education could. On their 21st birthday, Owen made a discovery that would change everything. While organizing old family documents for their mother, he found a sealed envelope marked "Never Open." Inside were copies of the fake paternity test, legal documents from the separation, and a letter Grace had written but never sent. The letter detailed everything: Nathan's accusations, Diane's manipulation, Grace's desperate attempts to prove her innocence. It ended with words that made Owen's blood run cold. "One day, the truth will find you, Nathan Cross, and I pray you're strong enough to bear it." Owen shared his discovery with Riley and Harper. Together, they began investigating, hiring a private detective to uncover the truth behind the tests that destroyed their family. What they found ignited a fire for justice that would soon burn through Nathan Cross's carefully constructed world. The billionaire had built his empire on lies. Soon, those lies would come crashing down in the most public way imaginable. The gala that changed everything, the Grand Meridian Hotel, sparkled like a jewel in downtown Chicago. Crystal chandeliers cast dancing light across marble floors, while waiters glided between tables carrying champagne flutes. Nathan Cross's annual charity gala had become the social event of the season. Raising millions for medical research while cementing his status as a philanthropic titan, Nathan moved through the crowd with practiced ease, shaking hands and accepting congratulations. Crosstech had just announced a breakthrough in medical imaging technology, and tonight's celebration doubled as a victory lap. His mother, Diane, held court near the main stage, her silver gown and diamond necklace catching every camera flash. "Quite a turnout," his CFO remarked, gesturing to the packed ballroom. "The mayor's here, 3 senators, and I spotted at least a dozen CEOs." Nathan smiled, but that familiar emptiness gnawed at him. Success had become routine, each achievement feeling less significant than the last. He'd built everything he'd promised Grace he would, except he'd built it alone. The evening's program began with speeches from board members and grateful research recipients. Nathan waited backstage, reviewing his notes, when Jennifer approached, looking flustered. "Mr. Cross, there's a situation. 3 people just arrived claiming to be on the VIP list, but their names aren't in the system. They're insisting on entry and causing quite a scene with security." Names. Monroe. Owen Riley and Harper Monroe. The name hit him like a physical blow. Monroe, Grace's last name. But it couldn't be. After 22 years, why would she surface now? "Let them in," he said quietly. "Seat them at table 12, near the front." The faces that haunted him when Nathan took the stage 10 minutes later, his prepared speech vanished from his mind. 3 young people sat at table 12, and even from a distance. Recognition slammed into his chest with devastating force. The young man on the left had Nathan's dark hair, his jawline, his intense eyes. The one beside him shared those features, but with a gentler expression, more contemplative. And the young woman between them possessed a face that stole Nathan's breath entirely because it was Grace's face. 22 years younger, staring back at him with unmistakable purpose. He stumbled through his speech, words coming automatically while his mind raced. Triplets. Grace had been carrying triplets, and he'd abandoned all of them based on a lie. The implications crashed over him in waves. When he finished speaking, the applause sounded distant, muffled. He returned to his seat beside Diane, who'd noticed his distraction. "What's wrong?" she whispered sharply. Before he could answer, the young man with his face stood up. Owen Monroe walked toward the stage with calm determination, his siblings following. The room's chatter died as people sensed something significant unfolding. Owen took the microphone without asking permission. His voice rang clear and steady across the ballroom. "Good evening, everyone. I apologize for the interruption, but some truths can't wait any longer." He turned to face Nathan directly. "Mr. Cross, my name is Owen Monroe. These are my siblings, Riley and Harper. 22 years ago, you abandoned our mother based on a paternity test that claimed you weren't our father." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Cameras turned, reporters scrambling for position. Nathan sat frozen, unable to breathe. Riley stepped forward next, his voice quieter but equally powerful. "That test was fabricated. Our mother never betrayed you. She loved you completely, and you destroyed her for believing a lie." Harper's turn came last. Tears glistened in her eyes, but her voice held steel. "We're not here for money or revenge. We're here because you deserve to face what your pride cost you. Us. 22 years of birthdays, graduations, and moments you'll never get back." The mother's confession, the ballroom, erupted in shocked murmurs. Nathan's world tilted dangerously. He looked at Diane, whose face had turned ashen, and in that moment, he knew. "Mother," he said, his voice barely audible. "What did you do?" Diane's composure cracked. Her hands trembled as she gripped the table's edge. "Nathan, I was protecting you. That woman was going to trap you, ruin your future."
"What did you do?"
Nathan's voice rose, drawing every eye. Owen pulled documents from inside his jacket. "Dr. Hamilton Reed never conducted any paternity test. Your mother paid him $50,000 to create a false report. We have bank records, email correspondence, and a signed confession from Dr. Reed himself before he died last year. He wanted to clear his conscience. Nathan snatched the papers, scanning them with growing horror. His mother's signature on wire transfer forms, emails discussing the fabrication. Reed's deathbed confession detailing exactly how Diane Cross had orchestrated the entire deception. You knew, Nathan whispered, turning to his mother. All these years you knew the truth. Diane's facade shattered completely. Tears streamed down her carefully made-up face. I thought she'd move on. Find someone else. I never knew about the triplets. Nathan, you have to understand, I did it because I love you. Love. The word tasted like poison. You destroyed my family because you couldn't control who I loved. Harper's voice cut through his rage. She took our father from us before we were even born. Every school play, every scraped knee, every nightmare. We had no one but our mother because you were too proud to question a piece of paper. Nathan stood on shaking legs, moving toward the triplets. Up close, the resemblance was undeniable. Owen had his exact eyes. Riley shared his profile. Harper possessed his mother's determination mixed with Grace's gentle beauty. Where is she? Nathan asked hoarsely. Where's Grace? Watching, Riley said simply. She's been watching you build an empire on the ruins of what you destroyed. The unraveling the gala descended into chaos. Reporters shouted questions. Security tried maintaining order. Social media exploded with live streams and hashtags. Nathan stood at the center of the maelstrom, his carefully constructed world collapsing. Diane attempted to speak, to explain, but Owen silenced her with a look of pure contempt. You spent 22 years sleeping peacefully while our mother worked herself to exhaustion raising us alone. You don't get to explain anything. Nathan's head of security approached cautiously. Sir, we need to clear the room. The media frenzy is getting out of control. But Nathan couldn't move. He stared at his children, these strangers who carried his DNA and Grace's strength. I need to see her. Your mother? Please, I need to apologize. Harper's laugh held no humor. Apologize? You think words can fix 22 years? She built a life without you. We all did. I know, Nathan said, his voice breaking. I know I can't fix it, but I need to try, please. The triplets exchanged glances, a silent communication born from years of relying only on each other. Finally, Owen nodded. She's at the Riverside Hotel room, 2847. But if you hurt her again, in any way, you'll regret it for whatever time you have left. Nathan didn't wait for security or explanations. He pushed through the crowd, ignoring the shouted questions and camera flashes. Behind him, Diane collapsed into a chair, the weight of her sins finally crushing her completely. The reckoning begins. The drive to the Riverside Hotel passed in a blur. Nathan's driver navigated through traffic while Nathan sat in the back seat, trembling. 22 years of regret condensed into this single moment. What would he say? How could he possibly explain the magnitude of his failure? At the hotel, he rode the elevator to the 28th floor. His reflection in the polished doors showing a man he barely recognized. Successful, powerful, hollow. He'd gained everything material and lost everything that mattered. He knocked on room 2847 with shaking hands. Footsteps approached. The door opened. Grace Monroe stood before him, and time collapsed. She'd aged beautifully, her face showing character lines earned through hardship and joy. Her eyes, once so full of love for him, now held something different. Not anger, not hatred, but a profound sadness mixed with hard-won peace. Hello, Nathan, she said quietly. His carefully prepared words evaporated. Grace, I'm so sorry. God, I'm so sorry. She stepped aside, allowing him entry. The hotel room was modest, but comfortable. Through the window, Chicago's lights sprawled endlessly, the city where their love had bloomed and died. I know about the test, Nathan said, tears streaming down his face. I know my mother fabricated everything. I know I destroyed our family over a lie. Grace sat in an armchair, her posture straight, dignified. Yes, you did. How can you be so calm? he asked desperately. Aren't you angry? Don't you hate me? I was angry for years, Grace replied. I hated you, hated your mother, hated myself for loving someone who trusted me so little. But anger is exhausting, Nathan. Eventually, I had to choose between bitterness and building a life for our children. Triplets, he whispered. You were carrying triplets, and I left you alone. I managed, she said simply. It wasn't easy, but we survived. More than survived. We thrived. Owen, Riley, and Harper are extraordinary people. Kind, intelligent, strong. They're everything I hoped they'd be. Nathan collapsed onto the couch, his face in his hands. I missed everything. Every moment of their lives, gone because I was too proud and too weak to question my mother's lies. Yes, Grace agreed, her voice gentle but firm. You did miss everything. But wallowing won't change that. The question is, what will you do now? He looked to Potter, this woman he'd loved and betrayed. I don't know. How do I build a relationship with children who have every reason to hate me? How do I earn forgiveness for the unforgivable? Grace was quiet for a long moment, gazing out at the city lights. You start by being honest. About your failures, your regrets, your intentions. You show up consistently, without expecting immediate acceptance. You prove through actions, not words, that you've changed. And most importantly, you respect their boundaries. They don't owe you anything, Nathan. Not forgiveness, not a relationship, not even acknowledgement. Whatever they choose to give, if anything, is a gift you don't deserve, but must treasure. Can you ever forgive me? The question came out broken, desperate. Grace turned to face him, and in her eyes, he saw the girl she'd been and the woman she'd become. I've already forgiven you, Nathan. Not for your sake, but for mine and our children's. Forgiveness freed me from the prison of resentment. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation, and it certainly doesn't erase consequences. You'll live with what you've done for the rest of your life. Learn from it. Be better. That's all any of us can do. The price of truth. Nathan left Grace's hotel room an hour later, feeling both lighter and heavier. The truth was finally out. But the weight of his failures pressed down harder than any lie ever had. His phone had been vibrating constantly. When he finally checked it, the damage was clear. News outlets worldwide had picked up the story. Billionaire's secret triplets expose family betrayal. Tech mogul's mother fabricated DNA. Test to destroy romance. 22 years of lies unravel at charity gala. Krostek's stock had already dropped 8% in after-hours trading. His board was demanding an emergency meeting. Legal was fielding questions about potential lawsuits. His carefully cultivated public image lay in ruins. But for the first time in decades, Nathan didn't care about his reputation or his business. He cared only about the 3 children he'd never known and the woman whose strength had saved them when his weakness had failed them all. He drove to his penthouse, where Diane waited in the living room, her face streaked with tears and age. Nathan? Please, she began, but he held up a hand. You're my mother, and I'll make sure you're cared for, he said coldly. But I never want to see you again. You stole 22 years from me, from Grace, from our children. That's unforgivable. Diane's face crumpled. I'm sorry. I'm so terribly sorry. Your apologies mean nothing, Nathan replied. You made your choices. Now live with them, called his attorney, instructing him to set up a trust for Diane's care, but removing her from all other aspects of his life. Then he sat alone in his penthouse, surrounded by symbols of success that suddenly felt meaningless. His phone rang. An unknown number? He answered, Mr. Cross. It was Owen's voice. My siblings and I have discussed it. We're willing to meet with you tomorrow, neutral location, to discuss potential next steps. No promises, no expectations. Just conversation. Nathan's heart leaped with fragile hope. Thank you. I'll be there wherever you want. One condition, Owen added. Our mother's welfare comes first, always. If pursuing a relationship with you causes her any pain, we walk away and you never contact us again. Understood, Nathan said immediately. I would never want to hurt her more than I already have. After the call ended, Nathan walked to his window, looking out at the same Chicago skyline he'd gazed upon earlier. The city looked different now, or perhaps he was seeing it clearly for the first time in years. He'd built an empire, but lost a family. Gained the world's respect, but destroyed the only love that mattered. Tomorrow, he would begin the long, uncertain journey of redemption. Knowing that success wasn't guaranteed and forgiveness wasn't owed, but at least the lies were finally over. And in truth, however painful, there was a chance to begin again. The morning after, Nathan didn't sleep. He spent the night on his balcony, watching Chicago transform from darkness to dawn. The city seemed different now, stripped of illusions. Every light below represented lives being lived, families being built, truths being honored. For 22 years, he'd existed in a carefully constructed fantasy. Reality had finally caught up. His phone continued its relentless buzzing. Messages from business partners, reporters, curious acquaintances. He ignored them all. Only one message mattered, the one from Owen with coordinates for their meeting, Lakeside Park. East Pavilion, 10 o'clock. At 9:30, Nathan's driver pulled up to the park. He dismissed the man, choosing to walk the final distance alone. The morning air was crisp, carrying the scent of late autumn leaves. Families strolled past, children laughing, dogs chasing frisbees. Normal life, the kind he'd sacrificed without realizing its value. The East Pavilion came into view. Owen, Riley, and Harper sat at a picnic table, 3 silhouettes against the lake's glittering surface. They looked up as he approached, their expressions guarded but not hostile. "Thank you for coming," Nathan said, stopping a respectful distance away. "I wasn't sure you would." "We almost didn't," Harper replied. "But our mother raised us to believe in second chances, even for people who don't deserve them." Nathan nodded, accepting the barb. "May I sit?" Riley gestured to the bench across from them. Nathan sat carefully, acutely aware of the chasm between them. These were his children, his own flesh and blood, yet they were strangers. Strangers he'd created through abandonment and lies. Breaking the ice, silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken pain. Finally, Owen spoke. "We have questions. You'll answer them honestly, completely, or this ends now." "Anything," Nathan agreed. "I'll tell you anything you want to know." Riley leaned forward. "Did you love our mother? Really love her? Or was she just convenient?" The question pierced Nathan's chest. "I loved her more than I've ever loved anyone. She was the only person who saw me. Really saw me. Not my money or potential. When I thought she'd betrayed me, it destroyed something inside me. But that's not an excuse. Love should have meant trust, and I failed that test completely." Harper's eyes narrowed. "Why didn't you question the test? Why accept one document over everything you knew about her?" Nathan's throat tightened. Pride. Fear. My mother had been planting doubts for months, suggesting Grace was after my money. Part of me wanted to believe her because believing the test meant I'd been right to be cautious. It was easier to feel wronged than to face that I might be wrong. He paused, voice breaking. I was a coward. I chose my wounded ego over the woman I loved. The triplets exchanged glances. Nathan couldn't read their expressions, couldn't tell if his honesty was helping or confirming their worst assumptions about him. Owen pulled out a tablet, scrolling through images. "Do you want to see what you missed?" Nathan's breath caught. "Yes, please." Owen turned the screen. The first photo showed Grace in a hospital bed, exhausted but radiant, holding 3 tiny bundles. Nathan's vision blurred with tears. His children, hours old, and he hadn't been there? Riley took over the tablet, swiping through years of memories. First birthdays with smashed cake everywhere. Kindergarten graduations with gap-toothed smiles. Halloween costumes ranging from superheroes to scientists. School plays, sporting events, family dinners around a modest table. Every image was another knife to Nathan's heart. Grace looked tired in many photos, the weight of single parenthood visible in the shadows under her eyes. But she was smiling, always making sure her children felt joy, even when she was drowning in responsibility. She worked double shifts for years, Harper said quietly. Sometimes we'd only see her for breakfast before school. But she never complained. never made us feel like we were a burden. She'd leave notes in our lunch boxes, little drawings and encouragements. We saved every single one. Nathan wept openly, no longer trying to hide his grief. I should have been there. For all of it. How did she manage alone? She wasn't completely alone, Riley explained. Neighbors helped. Her coworkers became like family. Portland has a way of taking care of its own. But yeah, it was hard. There were nights we heard her crying after she thought we were asleep. We learned early not to ask for things that cost money because we saw how much she struggled.
Ow.
Owen's voice hardened slightly. We watched our mother sacrifice everything while you built your empire. She put herself through night school, started a medical supply business from our garage, worked until her hands bled to give us opportunities. And you? What, added more zeros to your bank account? The accusation stung because it was true. I won't insult you by claiming I struggled, Nathan said. I had every advantage, every opportunity. I built success, but I built it hollow. Money, power, influence, all of it means nothing when you realize what you've lost. The hard questions. Harper leaned back, studying him with Grace's perceptive eyes. What do you want from us? Really want, beyond easing your guilt? Nathan considered the question carefully. Honestly, I want to know you. I want to understand who you've become, what you care about, your dreams and fears. I want to be a father, but I know I haven't earned that right. So I'll settle for being present in whatever capacity you'll allow. Even if that's just occasional emails, I'll take it. What about our mother? Riley asked. What are your intentions there? Grace has moved on with her life, Nathan replied. I have no right to disrupt that. If she wants nothing to do with me beyond coordinating about you three, I'll respect that completely. My feelings don't matter. Anymore, I destroyed what we had, and I accept that consequence. Owen pulled out his phone, showed Nathan a news headline. Crosstech stock plummets following scandal. Board demands CEO's resignation. Your business is falling apart, Owen observed. Does that change anything? Are you here because you've lost everything else? Nathan shook his head firmly. I'd give up Crosstech tomorrow if it meant building a real relationship with you. The company was supposed to be my legacy, but you three are my actual legacy. I just didn't know it until now. Harper's expression softened slightly. We've talked about this, the three of us. We're not interested in your money. Mom taught us that wealth without character is worthless. But we're willing to try slowly to see if you're capable of being someone worth knowing. Relief flooded through Nathan. Thank you. That's more than I deserve. Way more, Riley agreed. But that's who we are. Mom raised us to be better than our worst experiences. Building bridges, they talked for hours, the conversation gradually shifting from accusations to cautious sharing. The triplets told stories about their childhood, their education, their current lives. Owen was finishing a doctorate in computer science. His dissertation focused on ethical AI. Riley worked as a counselor, helping at-risk youth. Harper had opened an art gallery in Portland, showcasing emerging artists from marginalized communities. Nathan listened, pride and regret warring in his chest. They were extraordinary, each one carrying pieces of him and Grace, but shaped entirely by her values, her strength, her love. We should meet your mother, Owen said eventually. Our grandmother, though calling her that feels wrong. Nathan's jaw tightened. I've cut Diane out of my life. What she did is unforgivable. But if you want to meet her, understand who she is, I won't stop you. Just know she's toxic, manipulative, and responsible for all of this. We know, Harper said. We've researched her thoroughly, but we want to look her in the eye, let her see what her choices created and destroyed. That afternoon, they drove together to Diane's estate. Nathan hadn't spoken to his mother since the gala. Yeah, but she'd been calling repeatedly, leaving increasingly desperate messages. The housekeeper let them in. Diane appeared moments later, her usual polish gone. She looked older, diminished, haunted by guilt. Her eyes widened, seeing the triplets. Oh my God, she whispered. You look just like him. Like both of them, Mrs. Cross, Owen said formally, his voice ice. We wanted to meet the woman who decided we shouldn't have a father. Diane's face crumpled. I thought I was protecting him. I never meant to hurt innocent children. You didn't think we existed? Riley countered. You assumed our mother would abort or disappear? You didn't care what happened to us as long as we stayed away from your son. I'm sorry, Diane sobbed. I'm so terribly sorry. I was wrong about everything. Grace was perfect for Nathan, and I destroyed them out of pride and fear. Harper stepped forward, her voice deadly calm. Your apology means nothing. You'll live the rest of your life knowing you stole 22 years from your own grandchildren. That's your punishment, and it's far less than you deserve. They left Diane weeping in her mansion, broken by the weight of her sins. Nathan drove them back to their hotel in silence, each processing the confrontation, Grace's wisdom, that evening, at the triplets' request. Nathan joined them for dinner with Grace. The small Italian restaurant she'd chosen was quiet, intimate. Grace arrived wearing a simple blue dress, her hair pulled back, looking serene despite the chaos of recent days. How did the meeting go? She asked, directing the question to her children. Surprisingly well, Owen admitted. He was honest, at least. Didn't make excuses or try to minimize what he did. Grace looked at Nathan, evaluating. And you, how are you handling all this? Honestly? Nathan replied. I'm devastated by what I've lost, but grateful for this chance. I know I don't deserve forgiveness or even acknowledgement. But I'm committed to being better, to earning whatever relationship they're willing to give. Grace nodded slowly. The children have told me they want to pursue a relationship with you. I support their decision, but with conditions. You'll respect their boundaries absolutely. You won't use your wealth to manipulate or control. And if at any point they want distance, you'll give it without argument. Agreed, Nathan said immediately. Whatever they need, Riley spoke up. We've also discussed Mom's role in all this. We want you to find peace, whatever that looks like. You don't have to be friends or anything, but the animosity needs to end. We won't be caught in the middle. Nathan turned to Grace. I owe you an apology that words can't contain. You deserved trust, partnership, love. Instead, I gave you abandonment and pain. I destroyed the best thing in my life because I was too proud and too weak to fight for truth. I'm sorry it doesn't come close, but it's all I have. Grace was quiet for a long moment, her eyes reflecting complicated emotions. I've had 22 years to process what happened. I've been angry, heartbroken, bitter, and eventually at peace. I built a beautiful life from the ashes of our relationship. I'm proud of that. But I won't pretend the scars don't exist. I don't expect you to, Nathan replied softly. I just want you to know that walking away from you was the biggest mistake of my life. Everything I've achieved means nothing compared to what I lost. Harper reached across the table, taking her mother's hand. Mom, what do you need from him? Grace considered the question carefully. Honestly, I need him to be a good father to you three. That's all. I don't need apologies or explanations or promises. I need him to show up, be present, and prove that he's learned from his mistakes. If he can do that, we'll find our way to civility. New beginnings over the following weeks, Nathan began the slow process of building relationships with his children. He flew to Portland every weekend, meeting them for coffee, walks, simple conversations. He learned Owen's love of jazz music, Riley's passion for vintage books, Harper's obsession with post-impressionist art. He attended Harper's gallery opening, standing in the back to avoid drawing attention. He listened to Riley discuss his work helping troubled teens. He read Owen's research papers, struggling through technical jargon to understand his son's brilliant mind. Meanwhile, Crosstech's board remained in turmoil. Investors demanded Nathan's resignation, citing the scandal's impact on the company's reputation. Nathan surprised everyone by agreeing, stepping down as CEO, and appointing his trusted coup as successor. I built this company at the expense of my family, he announced in a press conference. I won't make that mistake again. My children are my priority now, and they deserve a father who's present, not consumed by corporate ambition. The business world was shocked. Nathan Cross, the workaholic billionaire, walking away from his empire. But Nathan felt only relief. He'd spent 2 decades chasing success while running from the pain of his failures. Now, he was finally standing still, facing truth. Doing the hard work of repair, Grace watched from Portland, seeing news clips of Nathan's transformation. Part of her remained skeptical, wondering if this was performance or genuine change. But she saw how her children's faces lit up when they talked about their father, how they were building cautious connections. That was enough. The path forward 6 months after the gala, the triplets invited Nathan to Portland for Thanksgiving. Grace would be there, along with close friends who'd become family over the years. Nathan accepted nervously. Understanding this was a significant step. The dinner was held at Grace's home, comfortable craftsman house filled with art, books, and memories. Nathan arrived with flowers for Grace and thoughtful gifts for the triplets. Nothing extravagant. Just items that showed he'd been paying attention to their interests. Grace accepted the flowers with a slight smile. "Oh, please. You remembered? Some things stay with you," Nathan replied quietly. The dinner was initially awkward, but gradually, conversation flowed. Stories were shared, laughter emerged, barriers lowered slightly. Nathan sat at the table surrounded by the family he'd abandoned, feeling both profound gratitude and deep unworthiness. After dinner, Grace asked to speak with him privately. They walked in her garden, autumn leaves crunching beneath their feet. "The children are happy," Grace said. "They're building something real with you. I see it in their eyes." "Trying," Nathan replied. "Every day, I'm trying to be worthy of their trust." Grace stopped walking, turning to face him. "I need you to understand something. I'll never forget what happened, and I'll never fully trust you again. But I can respect the man you're trying to become. For our children's sake, I can offer you civility, maybe even friendship eventually. But that's all." "Is that enough?" Nathan's heart ached, but he nodded. "It's more than enough. You owe me nothing, Grace. The fact that you're willing to be in the same room with me is a grace I don't deserve." "No," she agreed. "You don't. But our children deserve a father, and you're stepping into that role. I'll support that for them." They returned to the house where the triplets had pulled out board games, a family tradition. Nathan joined in, laughing at his own terrible luck and marveling at how competitive his children were. As the evening ended, Harper hugged him goodbye. "See you next month, Dad." "Dad." The word hit Nathan like lightning. He looked at Owen and Riley, who nodded their agreement.